right, so picture this. 1963. No internet banking, no security cameras everywhere you look. Just a time when things were, well, a little less complicated.
Less complicated maybe, but certainly not without their share of excitement.
That's for sure. And that leads us to today's deep dive, the Great Train Robbery of 63.
Ah, a classic. And one that I have to say still has this air of intrigue even decades later.
You're telling me. I mean, the Wikipedia page alone has enough twists and turns to make your head spin. You ready to jump in?
Absolutely, let's get into it.
Okay, so for anyone who needs a quick refresher, we're talking about a train heist, right? But not just any train heist. This was the big leagues.
And then some. We're talking about a haul that, in today's money, would be a mind-blowing $73 million.
$73 million. It's hard to even fathom that kind of money.
It really is, and that's just part of what makes the story so captivating. It wasn't just about the money, though. It was the sheer audacity of it all, the planning, the characters involved.
Right, like something straight out of a movie. So, set the scene for us. August 8th, 1963. What went down?
All right, so picture this. A Royal Mail train is speeding through the Buckinghamshire countryside.
Okay, I'm with you.
Now, this wasn't your average mail run. Because of a bank holiday weekend, this train was carrying a king's ransom, way more than usual.
Ah, so they really hit the jackpot with the timing on this one.
Exactly. And waiting to relieve them of that hefty cargo, a gang of, get this, 15 men.
15? You're kidding me. This had to be a well-oiled machine to coordinate that many people. Were they all career criminals, these guys?
Oh, you bet. We're talking seasoned professionals. Bruce Reynolds, considered the mastermind behind it all.
Okay, I'm starting to get a sense of this guy just from his title, the mastermind.
Right. And his right-hand man, a tough character named Gordy Goody. But they didn't just stop there. They brought in specialists.
Specialists like what, a safe cracker? A getaway driver?
You got the getaway driver part right, but this goes beyond that. They had Roger Corddry, their electronics expert. He's the one who figured out how to rig the signals to actually stop the train.
Wow, they really thought of everything. This is a whole different level of planning. But even with all that planning, I've got to imagine things could go wrong, right? Even the best laid plans and all that. What was their almost fatal flaw?
Ironically, it was their getaway driver.
No way, really?
Yeah. They'd hired a retired train driver to move the locomotive after they'd stopped the train, but, and this seems like a massive oversight, they hadn't considered that he might not be able to handle the newer model of train they were using.
Oh no, so much for having a backup plan.
Exactly. They were stuck relying on the actual train driver, a man named Jack Mills, to move the train for them.
Wait a minute, the driver, they just, well, more on that later, I guess. But they got him to cooperate.
They did, though. The details of how they convinced him are a little murky, even to this day. Some accounts say he was threatened, others suggest he was more persuaded. But either way, it was a huge risk forcing him to move the train. It just goes to show the dangerous undercurrent of this whole operation.
No kidding. And in the end, it worked.
In the heat of the moment, yeah. They got away with bags and bags of cash.
And this is where they hightail it to their hideout, Leatherslade Farm, right? Wasn't there something about them leaving fingerprints all over a Monopoly board, like they were celebrating?
It's almost comical when you think about it. For all their meticulous planning, they become infamous for this almost amateur mistake, leaving fingerprints everywhere at their hideout, especially on that Monopoly board.
Maybe they thought they were untouchable. Or maybe it was the adrenaline. Either way, talk about a rookie mistake. But those fingerprints, especially the ones on that Monopoly board, those were like a gift to the police, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely. That's where Detective Chief Superintendent Tommy Butler, a legend in the force, enters the picture. He and his team, the train robbery squad, were put on the case.
Tommy Butler. Now, there's a name that commands respect.
He was known for being relentless and for his unorthodox methods. There's this great anecdote about him bringing in a crime novelist to write a fictionalized account of a case he was working on, just to try and get inside a suspect's head.
Wow. A real-life Sherlock Holmes. But surely those fingerprints couldn't have been all he had to go on, right?
You're right. The fingerprints provided some leads, of course. But it was a combination of factors that really broke the case open.
Like what?
Good old-fashioned detective work, for one. And, as is often the case in these big investigations, a network of informants. Turns out, even masterminds make the mistake of trusting the wrong people.
Ah, informants.
Yeah.
The oldest trick in the book. So the cops are closing in. But something tells me this gang wasn't just going to surrender peacefully, were they?
Let's just say some of these guys made breaking out of prison look like a walk in the park.
Oh, really? That easy, huh? Tell me more.
Take Charlie Wilson, for example. Broke out of Winson Green prison in under 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Was this a fire drill they weren't aware of? How?
He had an outside team, a well-coordinated plan. And then there's Ronnie Biggs, right? Escaped Wandsworth prison?
Biggs. Right, right.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a whole other level of daring? I vaguely remember something about that.
Rope ladder over the wall, furniture van waiting. Classic.
Unbelievable. Talk about adding insult to injury. It's like they were taunting the authorities. Yeah. I bet that didn't sit well with our friend Tommy Butler.
You can bet it didn't. He was even more determined to catch them after that. There's a story that he actually had his retirement postponed.
No way. Seriously. Just so he could keep chasing these guys.
That was the rumor, yeah. Talk about dedication. But in the end, most of them were caught. 1964, the trial, it was a huge deal.
Oh, I bet. Front page news for weeks. Right?
Absolutely. They actually had to use a special building for the trial because the usual courtroom couldn't fit everyone.
Wow. They really rolled out the red carpet for these guys, didn't they?
Not quite. 7 of them got hit with 30-year sentences.
3 years.
Which, believe it or not, was considered a really harsh sentence back then. Even some murderers didn't get that much time.
Wow. That's something I didn't know. Okay, but what about the rest of them? Did they all face the music?
Well, remember John Daly, the fingerprints on the Monopoly board?
Ah, yes. The infamous Monopoly board. What about him?
He was actually acquitted.
Wait, what? How's that even possible?
His lawyer argued that anyone even remotely connected to the robbery would have gone into hiding, guilty or not.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
The judge seemed to think so, and just like that, he was a free man.
Wow. Just goes to show, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. So what about the rest of the gang? Did they all serve out their sentences?
Not a chance. Their stories after the robbery, they're almost as incredible as the heist itself.
Oh, I bet. All right, spill the tea. What happened to them?
Bruce Reynolds, the mastermind, lived it up in Mexico for a while, spending like crazy.
Living the high life, huh?
But eventually, the money ran out. He came back to the UK. Got caught, obviously.
Yeah, that was bound to happen.
But get this. After he got out of prison, he started writing about his experiences, even consulted on some projects. About what else? The Great Train Robbery.
No way. Are you serious? That's wild. What a story. From criminal mastermind to, what, a crime consultant?
Pretty much. And then, of course, there's Ronnie Biggs, the infamous escape artist.
Oh, right. Biggs. What happened? I'm guessing his story doesn't end with him serving his full sentence.
No way. So he ends up in Brazil, of all places.
Brazil. Okay, now I really need to hear this.
Became a bit of a celebrity there, believe it or not. Even recorded music with the Sex Pistols.
Get out of here. The Sex Pistols.
The one and only. But eventually, after years on the run, he gets homesick, decides to come back to the UK in 2001.
After all that, homesick. You can't make this stuff up.
He was immediately arrested, of course, spent a few years in prison, but then he was released on compassionate grounds due to health issues.
Wow. What a wild ride. So we've got a mastermind turned consultant, a fugitive turned folk hero. Any other juicy stories from the gang?
Oh, yeah. Buster Edwards. Remember him?
Vaguely. Refresh my memory.
After he finished his sentence, he came back to England, started selling flowers outside Waterloo Station, became a bit of a local celebrity, actually.
I'm kidding.
There was even a film made about his life starring Phil Collins, no less.
Phil Collins. Oh, there you go. You really couldn't make this stuff up. What about Charlie Wilson, the one who broke out of prison in record time?
Sadly, his story doesn't have a happy ending. He got involved in the criminal underworld again and was found murdered in Spain a few years later.
Oh, that's too bad. A real shame. It's fascinating, though, isn't it? How their lives took such different paths after the robbery. Some of them seemed to crave a normal life, while others, well, they were just drawn back into that world.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Were they always going to end up that way, or did the robbery change them somehow?
The age-old question.
Yeah.
Nature versus nurture. But there's one thing we haven't talked about yet. The elephant in the room, so to speak.
The money.
Ah, yes. The loot.
Did they ever find it?
That's the biggest mystery of the Great Train Robbery. A huge chunk of it just vanished. Poof.
Seriously.
Vanished.
Gone. Some was spent, obviously. But a big portion, it's still out there somewhere. Hidden, probably.
Wow. So the mystery lives on. It's like something out of a detective novel. But honestly, money aside, this whole case, it just has a way of capturing your imagination, Why do you think that is?
I think it's got that perfect blend of real-life drama. It's exciting, the scale of the robbery, the escapes, these larger-than-life personalities. It's more exciting than fiction.
It really is. And there's that part of you that wonders, what would I do? Could I pull something like that off?
Exactly. We all love a good heist story, the thrill of it all. But, and this is important to remember, there's a human cost to all of this. Like with Jack Mills, the train driver.
Right. He was never the same after that night. It's easy to forget that there are real victims in these stories.
The injuries he got during the robbery, they really took their toll. It's a good reminder that history isn't just dates and names. It's about people, real people, making real choices, and those choices having consequences.
That's a good point.
Wow.
Speaking of choices, it makes you wonder about the why of it all.
Hmm.
Their motives. Was it all just about the money, or was there something else going on there?
Well, you had guys like the Ulsterman, right? Rumor has it he was driven by something more than just greed. Like he was trying to expose flaws in the system.
Interesting. So, like a modern-day Robin Hood, taking from the rich, exposing the system.
Something like that. And even though times have changed, that tension between the individual and institutions, it's still there today.
That's true. I mean, who knows? Maybe the next Great Train Robbery will be a digital heist. Stealing data, cryptocurrency, that sort of thing.
Wouldn't that be something? A heist where the loot's invisible, the getaway car is just lines of code.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this case. It really gets you thinking. It's more than just a story, you know?
Yeah.
It's a puzzle.
It is. The Great Train Robbery, even after all these years, it still has us hooked.
Totally agree. Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today, but I have a feeling this conversation isn't over. To our listeners, if you want to go even deeper on this, and trust me, there's a lot more to discover, check out that Wikipedia page we've been talking about. It's a goldmine of information.
Yeah, there are so many twists and turns in this story. You could spend hours just going down those rabbit holes.
And who knows, maybe the next time we revisit this case, there will be new evidence, new suspects even. The story's never really over, is it?
Never truly over. And that's the beauty of history, isn't it? Always more to learn, always another layer to uncover.
Well said. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions.
And keep those curiosity engines running.